God's peace be with you. In Luke 9 verses 18 to 20, we read something somewhat strange. The disciples, especially Peter, had rightly recognized that Jesus was the Messiah. But how did Jesus react? He rebuked them and directed them not to tell this to anyone. He rebuked them. To rebuke here does not mean to criticize sharply, but it means to turn back or to keep down. Guys, keep it to yourself for now and don't tell anyone. Why? Because it was not yet Jesus' time. The Jews were waiting for the Messiah. And if they knew it was Jesus, they would be swarming all over him and would in effect prevent him from moving around and doing his ministry widely. But must we not always recognize and proclaim the truth? Yes. Must we not proclaim good news openly and widely? Yes. Must we not proclaim that Jesus is the Christ? Yes. But there is an appropriate time or timing for everything. As we read in Ecclesiastes 3:1, there is an appointed time for everything and a time for every affair under the heavens. This is what we call God's timing. Just a few examples. First, there are appropriate times for personal prayer and for doing secular work. Those who love Jesus might want to spend all their time communing with him, but they also need to go to work to earn a living and provide for their family, which God intends. Second example, there are appropriate times for being with our family and are being out on mission. The two are very important, but we cannot just focus on one to the exclusion of the other. A third example, there are appropriate times for sharing the gospel and for just having social fellowship with our friends. To share in inappropriate times could turn off our friends and make us lose the opportunity to reach them with the good news. On the other hand, effective evangelization actually can start with developing a personal relationship, with just being friends. Now, it is also important to know that things happen in the world and in our lives, both good and bad. And there is an appropriate time for us to speak about or act on these things. We read in Ecclesiastes 3, there is a time to love and a time to hate. In fact, as Christians, we do both. That is, we love the sinner but hate the sin. There is an appropriate time to just accept, embrace, and accompany the sinner, but that should lead to the time when we talk to him about his sin. Second, we read that there is a time to be silent and a time to speak. We can look at the wrongs that are happening around us and turn to fervent prayer, asking for God's help and intervention, but we can and at appropriate times should also speak out. In fact, God's answer might be that we are the ones to do something about what is going on. Third, we read that there is a time of war and a time of peace. We do long for peace in the world where peoples would just love and care for one another, being united and in right relationship with each other in solidarity. But the coming of the Prince of Peace brings division and engages God's people in spiritual war. Indeed, the way to ultimate peace is by way of such spiritual war. Now, there are also times when seemingly contradictory aspects of life come together. We need to see both as God intends them. For example, there is a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance. When a loved one dies, that is time for deep sorrow and appropriate mourning. But Christians are also mindful that death is just the gateway to eternal life. We are just pilgrims in this world, which is a valley of tears. For the Christian, To die is gain, and to those left behind, we can rejoice. Also, there will be suffering and pain in this world for the authentic Christian, but such crosses are allowed and designed by God to help us grow in holiness. Thus, we groan and moan, but we also recognize the good and thus can dance for joy. So, we see that there is such a thing as God's timing. There indeed is an appointed time for everything. God bless you.